So last Friday, they announced that Vicarious Visions, the Activision studio, is being absorbed into Blizzard, which was very, very surprising for everybody. This is surprising because they had just released the very successful Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2. They're obviously the developers of the Crash Bandicoot remakes before that, and then hundreds of games before that. They have an absurdly long list of games that they've developed. They're an incredibly talented studio, interesting studio. You know, I interviewed them back at Game Informer, interviewed the original founders, who eventually went on to make VLAN Studios, which made Mario Kart Live Home Circuit. But I interviewed them just about their history and just the weird projects they've done. You know, they made like Jet Set Radio for the Game Boy Advance, the Tony Hawk games for the Game Boy, obviously. They made a bizarre multiplayer mode within Guitar Hero 5 called Roadie Battle that nobody talks about, but it's a weird, funky thing. So these 200 developers within Activision have been absorbed into Blizzard. Who knows what it means for the future of Tony Hawk? Obviously, everybody was getting ready for them to also remake Tony Hawk 3 and 4. It's the most obvious choice in the world. And when Tony Hawk 1+2 sold so well, you'd think that that would happen. It still could. Like, you forget about the weird handoffs between all the Activision studios, and specifically the ones between Toys for Bob and Vicarious Visions, where I thought for sure that Vicarious Visions was going to develop the new Crash game since they made the remake and had that expertise, knew the franchise so well. But then at the end, they gave that to Toys for Bob to make Crash Bandicoot 4, and Toys for Bob did an amazing job. So I could certainly see a world where they hand off Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4 over to Toys for Bob or another Activision support studio. I mean, who knows what the hell High Moon's doing? They're busy with Destiny stuff. A lot of other folks are busy with Destiny stuff or Call of Duty stuff. But I could see some other studio picking that up and them still working off the core tech of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. But they have been pulled into the Blizzard monolith, which has ramifications for other things within Blizzard. It's just fascinating how all of this stuff connects. So, according to Bloomberg's reporting, and Jason Schreier, friend of the show over there, they have reported that they are being pulled in to work on Diablo stuff. And technically, since last year, they've been working on Diablo content over at Blizzard, specifically Diablo 2 Resurrected, which is the remake of Diablo 2 happening at Blizzard. Where this gets fascinating to me is on a number of fronts. First of all, Bloomberg also reported that apparently Diablo 4 and that team had been working on the remake of Diablo 2. And Diablo 4 and the Diablo development team is being led by Rod Ferguson, who is the man who got stuff done. He's the man who pushed the hell out of BioShock Infinite to get that game out the door. He was also working on the Gears franchise for a long time, both at Microsoft and at Epic. He's a man who can make things happen. And so I love the idea of him leading the Diablo team also working on the Diablo 2 remake, and now combining that with one of the most efficient studios in the industry, which is Vicarious Visions, to take this studio that's known for releasing hundreds of games, getting games out the frickin' door, and combining them with Blizzard, which is a studio that's known for not getting games out the frickin' door. So how that works and how those two collide is fascinating. But there's more beyond that, because the Diablo team and now Vicarious Visions are remaking Diablo 2 with Diablo 2 Resurrected. The Bloomberg report from Jason Schreier also says that Blizzard's classic games team is no more, which is a real bummer. Obviously, I'm a fan of Blizzard's older games, and I visited Blizzard back when I was at Game Informer for the cover story on Warcraft 3 Reforged, which obviously turned out to be a bit of a mess. So I visited Blizzard in October of 2018 for that cover story and really fell in love with the classic games team. Like the idea of being on this gigantic Blizzard campus. I cannot emphasize enough how big that Blizzard campus is. It feels like a small city. And the classic games team had just set up shop in a new building. There was a building way off on the lot, but still technically on Blizzard's lot. And they had just gutted it. They had set up trophies. They were getting ready to go for this is the Classic Games building. This is October 2018. And now Classic Games team is no more. But what I loved about it was just having this super proud, really excited, hardcore team within Blizzard that was focused on reviving the older games. And it was a fun mix of, they had some of the talent that worked on those older games, producers, executive producers, artists that had worked on those old games that were working on it. You know, for example, with Warcraft 3 Reforged, the crazy thing is with that game, so the Warcraft 3 engine was turned into the World of Warcraft engine. With Warcraft 3 Reforged, they had to turn the World of Warcraft engine back into the Warcraft 3 engine to make that work. But the benefit of Blizzard being around for so long is they had the person that wrote the engine still at Blizzard. So he was on that Classic Games team working to retrofit that engine to make that game work. So it was this fun, passionate group. They were so proud. And a lot of those people were also younger who came in who just loved Blizzard's games. You know, like the producer for Warcraft 3 Reforged, Pete Stillwell, he was talking about how Warcraft 3 was his favorite game. Warcraft 3 was the game that made him want to join the game industry. And so he joined Blizzard and then got to work on the remake of Warcraft 3. Like, that team loved these classic games so much, and feeling like the underdog within Blizzard, working on these beloved old projects was such a cool position for them. And selfishly, I love the idea of this team within Blizzard becoming RTS experts again. A little bit like how Vicarious Visions can kind of understand what made the original 3 Crash games great and go on to make Crash 4, even though they didn't, Toys for Bob did. I feel like there was so much potential for the classic games team within Blizzard to unpack these old RTS games, even Diablo 2, and use those design lessons towards something new. Like, imagine if that team went on to make a Warcraft 4. Obviously, with the result of Warcraft 3 Reforged and how that game actually released, maybe that wouldn't be the most exciting thing in the world, but like, don't doubt the passion of that team. They were incredible and really inspiring to be around. And it seemed like what happened with Warcraft 3 Reforged is it was rushed out the door. And the project was not ready to go. Activision Blizzard realizing, hey, we need to get this game out in this quarter. Let's roll with it. Because when we were there in October of 2018, it was fascinating because so many things were in flux. We were talking to the writers and they're like, we don't quite have the first draft of the script ready for this game, which is unheard of for a game we're doing a cover story on. You know, we were talking to the cutscene director and they're like, I don't know how many cutscenes we're remaking for this game. I think it's just going to be the opening one. Everything was in such a weird state of flux, and it seems like just a very rushed, chaotic project. And it's such a bummer that that studio and that team in particular within Blizzard was so excited about the future and where they can go next. And they were going to make Diablo 2 as a remake, and then nope. And now the classic games team is no more. They're being absorbed into other parts of Blizzard, or they're let go from the studio, according to Bloomberg. It's really a shame. Which ties into a lot of people's pessimism about Blizzard overall these days, is how much do they still care about great game design versus how much are they a part of the Activision hive mind and trying to get things out the door in order to turn a profit. I understand Blizzard can take a long time on games. That's very, we're used to that saga at this point, and I understand from a business standpoint, they're like, hey, we got to get more releases out the door to try and support these games so we don't have another Project Titan situation, even though that eventually led to Overwatch. So, that one worked out okay. But there have been so many people that have left Blizzard recently, or in the last couple of years. And so it's tough to see it as the same Blizzard that we know and love, and that we want to honor by remaking those games in the way that StarCraft Remastered was made by that classic games team, of just highlighting the purity of the game design, not changing anything core to the experience. Because now StarCraft Remastered, I think, is a great version of that classic game. Like, that classic games team was talented. It just clearly this project was rushed and not coming together the way they would have hoped. But in terms of Blizzard offshoot companies, it's interesting to look at who has left Blizzard, what they've gone on to do. Bonfire Games, it was the first big one that I can think of. I mean, I guess there's stuff like Ready at Dawn, which is also kind of spun off Blizzard in a funky way. But Bonfire Games, from Rob Pardo, who's the chief creative officer at Blizzard for so many years, designer on all the classics, StarCraft, Warcraft. And so Bonfire Games has been around quietly developing something for a while. Seems like it might be in the MMO space, but they have Diablo 3's director at Bonfire Games now. They also have Morgan Webb from XPlay at Bonfire Games. And I'm very curious to see what they announce and when. But the other big offshoot is Mike Morhaime, who's the former CEO of Blizzard. He's been around forever. And that new studio of his is called Dreamhaven, which actually consists of, or the new company, I should say, which consists of 2 development studios, one of which is Moonshot, which is composed of Dustin Browder, who's the game director on StarCraft 2, and then Ben Thompson, who was a creative director for Hearthstone, and then the other studio, which is called Secret Door. And this is the one that's very interesting. So Dreamhaven's Secret Door studio has Chris Siggety, who's the producer on StarCraft 2, and also it has a lot of other talent that came from StarCraft 2 and Heroes of the Storm. So if there's a Blizzard offshoot that's going to make an RTS under Mike Morhaim's management, that seems like it's right there. And I hope that's what Chris Siggety and the rest of the folks at Secret Door end up releasing. But there is another, as a wise man once said. Frost Giant Studios. The news broke, what was it, 2 years ago? Last year, that Frost Giant Studios, it was a former StarCraft 2 production director and the lead campaign designer for StarCraft 2, and I believe Warcraft 3, that they left Blizzard with the sole intention of creating a new RTS. And so they got a significant amount of funding, and so I cannot wait to see what Frost Giant Studios releases. In a perfect world, the Frost Giant Studios RTS releases at the same time as Secret Doors, hopefully RTS, and then there's a new rivalry there. That'd be great. But there's more spinning off. There was years ago, the director of Hearthstone, one of the directors of Hearthstone, Ben Brode, he left to form Second Dinner, I believe along with some other Blizzard talent. And they are creating a new game, and they have NetEase funding, millions of dollars from NetEase, who's also funding Bungie's new game. And then also they have a Marvel license, is all we know about that. So if there's going to be more exciting games sprouting up from former Blizzard talent, it seems like probably a Marvel game inspired or very similar to Hearthstone could still be happening in the near future. Yeah. Oh, David Arlene says a lot of Hearthstone talent left with Brode. Yeah. So that idea of the Marvel Hearthstone, obviously the world has changed a lot since then. Artifact has been released and rebooted several ways to Sunday. So I'm very curious to see what those Blizzard offshoots mean, what it means to have the 200 developers of Vicarious Visions brought into Blizzard. But again, if there's a team that I trust to make Diablo 2 Resurrected, Vicarious Visions seems like a solid team. I mean, they're one of the best remake companies in the business at this point, second probably to Bluepoint. So I'm very curious to see what they do. But people in the chat here for MinnMax have questions, which is great. Yarrow says, as someone who wanted Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4, I'm bummed out. As someone who also wanted Diablo 2 Remake to be good, I'm optimistic. You have to choose, Yarrow. Are you optimistic or are you bummed out? You can only have one way. Kyle Silva in the MinnFax chat says, I love Roadie Battle. I'm glad that you played that. David Arlene says, I wanted them to make their own thing, not just go back to more remakes. Plus, for me, Blizzard has been in decline for a long time now. Yeah, they've been quiet about Overwatch 2 for so long. They've still been pretty quiet about Diablo 4. I'm sure those will be solid games when they're released, but I feel for that company. There's so much old talent still within Blizzard. It's easy to see these headlines and say, they're all gone. But visiting that studio, it's like so many of the people that you meet, it's like, I've been here for, 15 years, 20 years. It's just mind-blowing. But obviously a lot of the big names, a lot of the big talent has left. And I think more interesting than that is just this, what seemed like increased pressure from Activision on Blizzard to release things. It's the same squeeze you see happening with EA. We had two gigantic leads at BioWare recently, Casey Hudson and Mark Dara leave. And you got to wonder, is EA putting the squeeze on them in an uncomfortable way? It's just natural that these new studios are going to pop up. But it's really inspiring to see the supernova of a lot of that top Blizzard talent going off, creating new studios, being passionate about creating smaller projects again. So I'm very curious to see what they do, and my fingers are crossed for a big new RTS. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that episode of MinnFax. Remember, on Sunday, we have the call-in episode of MinnFax with Ana Diaz joining us. So if you're at the MinnMax Council tier, you can call in and talk to us about anything you'd like, or just talk to us about games you've been playing, what you enjoy, questions. We are legally required to answer everything you may ask. This was just a clip from MinnFax, which is our weekly Q&A for supporters on Patreon. Every Monday, we stream for what we call the High Council, and we answer any question they have about the game industry, our past, MinnMax's future. And on the last Sunday of every month, we actually have a call-in version of MinnFax. So check out patreon.com/MinnMax2Ns, and please give it a shot. Thanks so much.